Good afternoon and welcome to Inspion Talks. We're here in Frascati in Rome, and I have a very special guest with me today here. I have Dani Dosa from Hungary, who's training. Welcome, Dani, to the program. How are you doing?
Tofa. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm doing very well, thank you.
Yeah, so we just finished a very tough training session in preparation for the competitions coming up, and the audience are really looking forward to hearing your story. So the first question has to be, of course, how did you get into fencing? Or as they say in Hungarian, vívás, I think.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Nicely pronounced as well. Well, it's not a too exciting story. Actually, it was the closest sports club to the place where we used to live. Yeah. And my parents decided that it's the most convenient for them. So actually it was like 5 minutes walk from our apartment. And they wouldn't have to take me there every single day and then come for me, pick me up.
Oh,
so
nice.
Pretty much that's the shorter version of the story.
So that's interesting. That's interesting for me as well. The club was so close to my house that it was so easy to go.
Yeah, it was just really convenient for them, and they knew that even if I have to go alone and come home alone, I'm safe, and they wouldn't just have to worry about anything.
And what age did you start fencing?
I started really in a really young age. I think I was 6 or 7 years old.
6 or 7.
Yeah, first or second grade. I do not remember exactly, but yeah. It's around my 18th year in fencing.
And did you have any? Did your parents do any sports themselves? Did they play sports?
Nothing.
No.
They just wanted me to have something to do besides school, because I had a lot of energy, and if I just come home after school, I would just I wasn't a good child. So
that's great. So fencing was a way that you were able to channel your energies when you were young. That's good.
Well, it was something to keep me occupied, but I didn't really like it in the beginning. I mean, I can remember sometimes my mother had to just grab my arm and take me to the fencing hall. And the first year was just horrible, because I was the least talented guy in the entire team of children who have started at that particular year. So yeah, I didn't really like it in the beginning, but afterwards.
Do you remember what you were doing at the beginning in the classes and stuff? What kind of things?
Well, yeah, in my club we had I think a pretty unique system. It's kind of like they do not give you a foil immediately when you get into the fencing hall. So you're just starting to do some physical preparations, some games which would improve your hand and feet coordination, I believe. And just showing you the en garde position and lunge and the footwork, the really basic stuff. And we were doing that for 4 months, so we haven't even touched the foil. And then after 4 months, they give us a foil, and then we start. It's a shame, but I do not know how it's called in English. The thing that you are just.
To thrust, to hit the pad.
The pad. Yeah, we just started practicing on that, and then we eventually, after 6 or 7 months, we got some fencing gear, and then we started.
Because I think that's interesting. I think a lot of kids, when they're younger, they want to immediately go and take the sword and go and fight.
No, it doesn't really make sense. I mean, especially in foil, when you have to be aware of the rules, and if the rules are not, we had to do tests. Literally, at the beginning of each training, we had a piece of paper
to explain the rules.
And there were like these quizzes that which one is the parry, which protects your the inner and upper quarter of your body and stuff like that. And there was a question for if your opponent attacks you, then you touch his blade and you both score who gives the touch and stuff like this. We just really
I think that's interesting, because we've got to look at the way is you want to teach the kids the correct technique at the beginning, of course, but also you want them to enjoy it so they continue the sport. And I think that's a great opportunity and challenge for us to try to find that balance.
Well, I don't think that anybody enjoyed it. I mean the kids. Well, it was tough, but for some reason nobody just gave up. I believe the group which started at that year, there were very few kids. I believe there were only 16 kids in that group, and for the second year everybody continued.
Yeah.
But afterwards, when we started to do competitions, they just disappeared, and I'm the only one who's fencing from that.
Still fencing now.
From that team, yeah.
Well, it's amazing because, you know, obviously I've grown up fencing with you, and you've really, over I'd say the last 4 to 5 years, really picked up on your fencing and taken it to the next level. Now looking towards, Tokyo. Of course, it's been a very strange situation for the athletes with the Olympics being postponed, and so how did you manage to keep yourself kind of going during that period, and how's the training going for Qatar, the next competition?
Well, immediately after we got back home from Los Angeles, when the Grand Prix competition was cancelled, it was a really tough 2 or 3 weeks because the International Olympic Committee hasn't announced that they were going to postpone the Olympics, and then again in Hungary, just all the fencing halls and all the sport facilities were closed, and I was sitting at home for 2 weeks thinking that I will have the qualification event in 4 weeks, and I just couldn't have trained, and it was really bad. And finally when they announced that the Olympics is going to be postponed, I just felt kind of relieved, and since I couldn't train, couldn't fence, and I just started to find other things which have kept me occupied, and then after like 2 or 3 months we could start training again. And of course in the beginning I was really disappointed, really unmotivated and stuff like that, but then I realized that this is a unique chance which most fencers will not get in their lives, that you have a long period of time when you do not have to care about the competitions, you don't have to care about your shape, you can only care about training and improving your fencing. And when I have realized that, I just started training and fencing so consciously, and trying to fix my errors, my mistakes, and trying to improve the quality of my fencing. I mean, I used to attack like this a lot, and it almost disappeared from my fencing.
I think that's an interesting point. I think that because it's so competitive, we go around the world competing, that we kind of have our game plan. You've got to go from competition to next competition. And it's an amazing, because obviously you have to have a period to be able to learn, to improve your skills. And I agree with you.
It's not really there. I mean, you have to immediately after you get back home from the competition, you have like a week or so, which you would normally have to spend with like resting and getting ready for another training, like a few weeks of training, and then go to another competition. But it's like from January we have competitions every second or third week, and it's just you don't really have time to prepare for them.
That's really interesting. So and of course it's interesting that so how long have you been coming here to train in Frascati?
Well, I believe the first time when I came here was back in 2019, before the Tokyo World Cup. I think I came here for a week, and I enjoyed it very much. I mean, the people here are just amazing. From the very first second when I got here, they treated me as one of their own. They invited me to dinner and stuff like that, and I felt really nice. And also the atmosphere, the way how these guys are training. Everybody, so there's the trainers do not have to give any like orders or
motivation.
Nothing. It just everybody comes and does their own thing, and you can just see that all of them is taking everything very seriously. And I think that being in this atmosphere is very motivational for me as well, and just changes my perspective.
I think that's what I've really liked training here, and I noticed, of course, training with Richard Cruz also in London, who's a top fencer. But what I like about what I see here is yourself training with Dani Dosa, many of the champions here, it's not just what they do on the piste, it's their preparation, and I think that's really important for young people looking at it. It's not just what you do on that competition, it's what you do outside that piste. And I think that's something that I've really everybody, including yourself, including Dani, they show that same focus, whether they're on the piste, whether they're in the gym, whether they're doing footwork, you know.
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right about that. I mean, it takes a lot of work outside of the piste as well, not only on the piste, to be a good fencer, strong fencer.
Yeah, no, definitely true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to ask you one. So what would you rank as your best achievement so far in your fencing career?
Well, I would separate it the under 20 and then the seniors. In under 20, I did really well. For Hungarian, I think I did really well. I won a World Cup in under 20. I had multiple top 8s and lots of medals from World Cups. Then I had 2 European Championship silver medals, which were definitely a huge step forward in my career. I've proven to myself that I can perform on the most important competitions as well. And then in seniors I had 3 top 16s, and I'm really proud of all of them, and it just left me starving for the top 8. I mean, I believe that one time I was so close to getting to the top 8. I just felt so disappointed for losing. I lost to Inboden 15-13. It was a really nice bout. I really enjoyed it, and I really felt like I
can go to that next stage.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting because I've watched you fence a lot, and I've seen you beat a lot of top fencers.
Yeah.
And I've seen you, for example, I remember in Turin, you really out-fenced Richard Cruz. I remember that, and I remember because you haven't always beaten him, have you?
No, never. Yeah. Actually, that was the first time when I won against him.
And he was at the top of the world.
Yeah,
then.
I mean, I believe in the season I was only the second person he lost against, and that was like the 3rd or 4th competition, and he won 2 competitions, because in Paris he lost to Meinhardt, and then in Turin he lost to me, and then afterwards he just started unfortunately sliding down. Yeah,
so that's interesting because I think you have the talent to be one of the top fencers in the world. Now, how do you go from, let's say, because you obviously shown that you've Richard Cruz, you've beat Rayson Bowden and many other top fencers. I watched also a match with Rayson Bowden, and you really out-fenced him.
Yeah.
Technically. So in your mind, how are you going to make that transition from being a world beater to being world class, because you have this talent?
I believe that in fencing it's all about confidence.
Yeah.
Self-confidence. Self-confidence. Confidence.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to improve my self-confidence on the piste. And I believe that's the key. Yeah. Because I can do all the parries. I can do all the riposte. Yeah. I fence well, like for ready fence in the middle of the piste. I do well. I have strong attacks. I believe at least that I'm good at like defensive fencing as well. So I think it's all about self-confidence and believing that when you do something, you can actually score a point against one of the top fencers in the world. And the moment you believe that you can actually do it, or at least you don't feel the pressure, you just don't realize that the person standing in front of you has actually won several titles already, and you haven't. And when you just focus on fencing, I believe that's the key. Yeah,
I think that's an interesting point you made. So I think that you talked about how you're really proud of your junior results, and that kind of gave you the belief to kind of, let's say, keep training and go to senior level.
Yeah.
And then beating these top fencers has made you realise, look, I have these skills, and then it's just about being able to reproduce that on a consistent basis.
Yeah, consistency. It's really important, and I haven't figured that out. For example, I remember I had a competition in Bonn 2019, I believe, when on the first day I had to beat Saito for the 96 and then Davis for the 64, and then the next day I had to beat
just for the audience, Saito was a silver medalist in the World Championships, and James Davis European champion. Yeah. So this is top fences.
Yeah, and this was only for the 64, and then the next day I had to fence against him, and I beat him for the 32, and then after 3 really nice bouts, I lost to an Olympic champion. But still, it's like it's difficult to keep being consistent in fencing, and that's something I really have to improve.
Yeah. So okay, so we've talked about your competitive fencing and how you're and how you're achieving very well on the piste. Now, looking at fencing from a more general perspective for your life, how has fencing kind of helped shape your life in terms of the other things you do in your life, you're studying, this kind of thing?
Well, it's no secret that I can thanks everything to fencing, like literally everything, because let's just say that my family background wasn't the best when I was a young child, and my club just really gave me a shelter and a place where I could go to when something was not right at home, and also the coach who has decided to pretty much raise me and teach me everything. He has, well, as I just said, he was the person who actually has raised me and taught me manners and everything, because my parents weren't really taking care of me, we can say. So I think from all this, it's really clear that I can literally thanks everything to fencing. If I wouldn't have started fencing, I wouldn't have had a university degree. I probably wouldn't even have went to a nice secondary school. I'd probably just be stuck in a I don't know, being a delivery guy somewhere or doing something which I don't know. Fencing, I can thanks everything to fencing literally in my life.
That's really amazing, actually, and I think so. That's what's also amazing about fencing. We have a kind of community kind of in fencing. I think that's amazing for you, that as a young kid that you were able to put your energies into something fencing and you had the support there from your coach to enable you to...
Yeah, but yes, and what makes this story really special is I have already mentioned I was the least talented guy in the group when I started, and the coach was actually the coach who has decided to take me on was actually the most experienced and most respected coach, one of the most respected coaches in Hungary.
What's his name?
Belicai Sándor. And he immediately treated me like his son, because he just knew, I don't know I don't think that he has seen anything in me like as a fencer, but he just had a really big heart, and he realized my situation back home, and he has started taking care of me. So for example, there were other parents in the club who were really nice to me, and I remember I had to go to one of my club mates' place after school to do my homework, and my club mates' parents were actually the ones who corrected it, who checked if I was done with it, and also one of the moments with just the most how would you say that, most decisive or most important moments in this whole story was when my coach has written a contract with me and made me sign a contract. It was nothing serious, it was just a way to motivate me. And in this contract there was I will do my best and participate on 4+1 trainings a week, and my average in school cannot go below 4.0. In Hungary we have from 1 to 5. The grades are from 1 to 5, and 4.0 average is pretty good. Yeah. And
how old were you when you signed this?
8, 9
8 years old.
8 or 9 years old. Yeah, he was just really
That's
looking
amazing.
out for me. I still believe that he's my stepdad, or at least he has done more for
really
me
amazing.
than my parents. So,
and I think two things really stand out for me there. First of all, actually, is how important that we spent so much of our lives fencing, that the coach, you spend so much time away from your family actually, and in that fencing environment, that the coach is really important to the development of that child.
Yes,
your
they
relationship
have a huge
with,
responsibility.
Yeah.
Huge responsibility.
Yeah. And the second thing on that point is that I think what's great is that you've able to reach the top of the game. But the point is, even if you hadn't, that experience of at that time in your life, you really needed that positive outlet.
Exactly.
And do you know what I mean? So even if you hadn't reached the top, still it was a great experience for you.
Yeah, still I would have had so many more options in my life to. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned you're studying in university as well.
Yes, I have already finished my bachelor's and then I started my master's.
What's your subject?
Enterprise development.
Okay.
It's lots of finance and accounting and management and stuff like that.
And do you feel that your fencing and your training has helped you with your studies?
Well,
in terms of how you focus, or how have you managed to balance that kind of fencing and the studying?
well, fortunately, I'm a quick study, so I have never spent too much time studying for one exam.
Yeah.
I could balance it pretty well, fortunately. So, luckily, I have in December after the national championships, we have like lots of free time, and I'm doing most of my exams in that period, like before January and still in December before Christmas, and I don't know, it just works out pretty well. For this year, for this semester, obviously, how do you say that when you don't have an active semester but you have a passive semester?
Yeah.
Okay, so I passivated.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not attending university now.
Yeah, doing it virtually online. Yeah.
No, not at all, not at all.
Ah.
Not at all, because I wanted to focus on fencing.
Oh yeah,
and
so you took some time
It's
out,
also on online, university, when the tuition is online, not tuition, the classes are online, it's so time consuming.
Yeah.
And you just have to do a lot of work, probably even more work than you would normally have to do.
But I think that's good, that I think the stories I hear, and that's really encouraging, is that you were able to, you did your fencing, but you went to school, you've done your exams, you've hit university, the message that I want to also let the future parents know is that doing sport to a high level, even to a lower level, is not an inhibitor for your academic.
No, not at all.
And I really want to make that clear.
It is irresponsible from a sports person to rely only on sports. So I have lots of things that I'm doing. I have started a little company back in 2020 in January. Then I have started another one last month, and so I'm always. So I'm working. I'm studying, I'm fencing, I have a girlfriend, so I'm doing lots of things simultaneously, and this is how it is supposed to work. Sports is just something which helps you. Helps you build the foundations of your life after sports. Yeah. This is what I believe, and this is why I do all these things besides sports.
So Dani, you talked about a lot about the skills that we've learned from fencing in our lives, but also one great skill is the ability to travel the world and through fencing. So how do you feel that traveling the world to different countries, experience different cultures, has kind of formed you as a person?
Well, it's a really nice question, actually. It made me respect and value more than what we have here for example, in Hungary. The fact that we have somewhere to live, the fact that we have running water, the fact that we have 2 rooms in an apartment, it just really made me grateful for what we have. And seeing how people live in other cultures, in other countries, it just really made me realize how lucky we are and how grateful we have to be for being where we are and having what we have, and not always strive for more, but just take a moment, just be grateful, and then
would there have been a country or a competition which kind of opened your eyes a bit? Like, do you remember the first time? Because for me, the first time that I was 16, I went to Korea. I remember I went to Seoul, and that was really eye-opening, completely different culture. Was there something for you, a country?
Well, these Eastern countries, for example, China, Shanghai, Japan, Tokyo. Seeing how people live there and how they, seeing how people work, like seeing their everyday lives, seeing the apartments they stay in, the food, language, and everything. just has really made a huge impact on my life. I mean, I think it's really a valuable thing that you actually experience other cultures as well. You just don't read about them in articles, but you can actually experience those things. And in fencing, I believe you don't really have to be a tough fencer to be able to travel all around the world and experience all these different cultures. And yeah, it has made a really huge impact on my personality and on my perspective.
You said something I really like there, which is that when you experience, like, rather than just going on hearsay or what you've heard or read, when you go and see something with your own eyes, there's nothing better. And I think that just blasts with ignorance.
You can make up your own opinion. And you just don't have to rely on other stories, which obviously could be not always true, but that's a really good point. Okay, and I got another question for you, slightly going back to fencing. It's interesting just for other fencers and other people coming up to understand. Do you have any kind of mental warm up or routine that you do for competitions to kind of, because we're talking about getting in the zone, you know, are there any kind of things that you do or any superstitious things that you kind of like to have to make sure that you can compete at the top? Well, I think, I do have superstitions. And I'm also working with a sport psychologist. To work on these things, these mental preparation things. My biggest superstition is that I have to organize everything and put everything in order, and everything has to be clean. So, for example, before leaving the hotel room, I always make my bed. I always organize the stuff that I leave in the hotel room. I always, I like to be clean. I like everything to be in order. And then, before leaving the competition, and I feel like everything in its place, then I feel that also in my mind everything is in its place and everything is in order.
That's funny. That sounds like the advice my mum used to give me. She used to come into my room and say everything is messy. Yeah. If you have a messy desk, you have a messy mind. But I haven't managed to manage that.
But probably she said it for different reasons.
No, but that's interesting. That's an interesting point, because if you feel everything is kind of ready.
Yeah, it just makes me calm.
Yeah,
it just makes me, I don't know. It's just a superstition, but it works. Works out.
And you kind of would you say that you kind of do the same routine before the competition, like a physical warm up, this kind of thing?
Well, yeah, I used to have a routine. For example, I was always in the hall like 2.5 hours before my first bout.
Wow.
And I just, you know, I just always invested time into warm up and preparation, like also mental preparation, and just put the music in. Let's just focus only on the competition, and of course I always know my opponents, and I'm always trying to imagine that in each different match, what my opponents will be doing, and in what situations it will occur, and what can I do in those situations. How can I counter my opponent's style and stuff like those. So
I think that's really interesting, because I think, you know, it's kind of awesome, almost like you're programming in what you want to do before you fence, because in terms of it's, you know, what do you think on this interesting point? Because, like, for example, of course you have to change tactics during the match. Yeah. But obviously, if something is kind of, you know, beforehand, it's going to go a bit quicker.
Well, yeah, I'm not really getting into the specifics of each bout. So I just like setting up guidelines for myself. Yeah. So it's I think you can just key your own fencing when you are setting up too many rules for yourself. So, for example, that he's always parrying with a quart, and then you every single time when you advance, you have to disengage from a quart. And what happens when he does another parry? So fencing is not like that. I believe that actually every single time when I fence well, I don't know. I'm not setting up rules for myself. It's only guidelines which I have to follow. So for example, I know when somebody attacks, whether if they straighten the arm and do a disengage, or whether if they are doing that, and I know that each different scenario I have to do other countermeasures, if we can.
So that's actually a good point, actually, that it's important to prepare but not to over prepare.
No, it can actually kill your fencing.
That's a really good thing for people to take away.
Yeah.
Okay, and my final question would be that Dani, how old are you now? You are
25.
25. So what would the Dani Dosa of 2021 give advice to Dani Dosa, aged 15 years old? If you could go back in time, what would you be giving advice to yourself and to younger people fencing?
Ooh, it's a really nice question. The first thing is always take your studies very seriously, because that's a really important thing, and it really gives a lot to your fencing and also your personality, and just focus on studying as well as on fencing, because these two are really correlated. So and then I would say that do not overdo fencing, or how am I supposed to do not
overtrain you.
Yeah, do not overtrain yourself, because what I've realized recently is that having a rest and recovery is as important in fencing as good training. So I used to train a lot, like 10, 12 times a week, which is a lot, I believe.
Sure, yeah.
And now that I fence a bit less, not a bit, I fence less. I fence only 4 times a week, and I do physical preparation then 4 or 5 times a week, and it's like only 8 or 9 trainings a week. It's working out much better. So just do not overtrain yourself. That can have very bad consequences. And probably that's all.
No, that's very good advice. And I just wanted to say thank you very much, Dani, for joining us today on the Inspion Talks. I hope you enjoyed this discussion. There's some really great things to take away for everyone to learn, and I look forward to speaking to you soon.